She said, I am pregnant with your brother's baby. Deal with it. I said, congratulations. Then I told her about his infertility diagnosis. When the real father turned out to be her sister's husband, our entire family exploded at Christmas dinner. I am a 32-year-old guy and Jessica is 30. We have been married for 7 years. I was sitting in our kitchen when she walked in with this really weird smug expression on her face. We had been having problems for months, barely talking, sleeping in separate bedrooms, and she was spending every single weekend at her sister Sarah's mountain cabin. I was actually planning to bring up marriage counseling that night and had even printed out some brochures. She sat down across from me instead of next to me like she normally would, which was already a red flag. She only sat across from me when she was about to ask for money or start a huge fight. Then she just said it straight out, I am pregnant. My first thought was genuine confusion because we hadn't been intimate in over 4 months. I mean, we still shared a bed until September, but nothing physical had happened between us. Before I could even process that information, she dropped the nuclear bomb. It is Ryan's baby, she said. Ryan is my younger brother, 29 years old, just got promoted to regional manager at his company, drives a brand new truck, and he was my best man at our wedding. He gave this speech that made everyone cry. Jessica sat there with her arms crossed and her chin raised, actually looking proud of herself like she had just announced she won the lottery. She continued talking and said, I know this is hard to hear, but Ryan and I have been seeing each other for months. We are in love, real love. Not whatever this is. Then she gestured around our kitchen dismissively and said, you will just have to accept it and figure out how to deal with it. I stared at her for what felt like forever, but was probably only 10 seconds. My brain was trying to process everything. My wife, my brother, pregnant, months of lying. Then I said the only thing that came to mind, which was congratulations. Her smug expression completely vanished, and she said, that is it. Congratulations. I told her, what else should I say? You are having a baby. That is wonderful news. Ryan must be thrilled. She asked if I wasn't angry, and I said, oh, I am feeling a lot of things right now, but mostly I am confused about the medical logistics. She asked what I meant by medical logistics, and I explained that Ryan's been dealing with infertility issues since his motorcycle accident 3 years ago. The spinal injury affected other functions, and the doctors told him he would probably never have kids naturally. I watched the color drain from her face in real time. It went from smug pink to confused white to scared gray. She said, that is not true. You are making that up. I told her, Jessica, I drove him to every specialist appointment for 6 months. Remember when he was seeing that back doctor in Denver? Those weren't just for his spine. She accused me of lying to hurt her, so I pulled out my phone and scrolled through our family group chat. I found Ryan's message from 3 weeks earlier about starting their 3rd round of fertility treatments with his girlfriend Claire. There were screenshots of appointment reminders, insurance pre-authorizations, the whole thing. I showed her and said, see, he and Claire have been trying for 2 years. They have spent $30,000 on fertility treatments. They just started round 3 last month. Jessica grabbed my phone with shaking hands and scrolled through months of messages about doctor visits, hormone shots, egg retrievals. Her face was now in full panic mode. She said he never told me about any of this. I explained that is probably because you never actually slept with him, and why would he share his private medical information with his brother's wife? She stared at the phone for another minute, then looked up at me with this desperate expression and asked maybe the doctors were wrong. Maybe it healed. I had to explain that spinal cord injuries don't just heal themselves, and if they did, don't you think he would stop spending thousands on fertility treatments? That is when she really started to panic. Update 1: after I dropped that medical bombshell, Jessica completely lost her mind. She started screaming about how I was trying to manipulate her, that Ryan must have lied about his condition, that I was making everything up to hurt her and ruin her happiness. She kept yelling that he told me he loved me. He said he wanted to have a family with me. When I asked her when he told her this, she said it has been going on for months. I asked her what months and to give me specific dates, but she couldn't. She just kept yelling about how I was trying to manipulate her. I texted Ryan and said, Jessica says she is pregnant with your baby and that you two have been having an affair. Thought you should know. My phone rang literally 10 seconds later. Ryan said, what the hell, Mike? What kind of sick joke is this? I told him it wasn't a joke. She just told me you guys are in love and she is carrying your child. He said, that is insane. I haven't even seen Jessica since your birthday barbecue in July. And Claire was with me the whole time. I put him on speakerphone and Jessica tried to grab it, but I held it away from her. Ryan said, Jessica, what the hell is going on? You know I am with Claire. We are literally sitting in Dr. Martinez's office right now waiting for our fertility consultation. Jessica's voice cracked when she asked, you are at the fertility clinic? Ryan said, yeah, we have our appointment in 10 minutes. We are trying to have a baby, Jessica, with each other, like legally and within our actual relationship. Why would you tell Mike we had an affair? We have never even been alone in the same room together. Jessica said. But you told me at Mike's birthday that I looked nice, Ryan explained. I said happy birthday to you because it was also your birthday week. Claire bought you a card. Jessica just hung up on him, slammed the phone down, and stood there breathing heavily. The next morning, she tried a completely different strategy. I woke up to the smell of bacon and eggs, which was the first time she had cooked breakfast in probably 8 months. She was wearing the red dress I bought her for our anniversary. Full makeup, hair done perfectly. She said good morning baby in this fake sweet voice, and told me she made my favorite breakfast. I asked what this was about and she said she was thinking about yesterday and realized she was just confused and scared. She claimed the pregnancy hormones were making her say crazy things and that the baby was definitely mine. I sat down at the table she had set with our good plates and said, Jessica, we haven't been intimate since July. She insisted that wasn't true and asked what about that night after Emma's graduation party. I reminded her that Emma's graduation party was in June and it was now November, which meant that was 5 months ago. She paused and I could literally see her doing math in her head, counting on her fingers under the table. Then she said, okay, I meant that weekend in September when you went on that fishing trip with your dad. I said, right. I went fishing, and you went to Sarah's cabin with her and Brad for their anniversary weekend. It was a 3-day romantic getaway and you posted 17 Instagram stories about it. There was another long pause and her face was changing colors again. I asked Jessica, exactly how far along are you? She said, 10 weeks, maybe 12. The doctor said it is hard to tell exactly. I did the math out loud and said so conceived in late August or early September, when I was gone fishing and you were at a romantic mountain cabin with Sarah and her husband Brad. She stood up so fast her chair fell backwards and her coffee mug shattered on the floor. Coffee went everywhere. She said she needed to go to her mom's house to think. I told her that was fine. And while she is thinking maybe she should pack all her stuff because I would be contacting a lawyer that day. She said, you cannot divorce me. I am pregnant. I replied with someone else's baby. Someone who definitely isn't my medically infertile brother. She grabbed her purse and left. I spent the morning cleaning up broken ceramic and Googling divorce attorneys. Update 2: the next few days were absolutely insane. First, Jessica's mom Linda called me at 6 in the morning crying hysterically. She asked Michael, how could you throw a pregnant woman out of her own home? I explained Linda. She told me the baby wasn't mine, then claimed it was Ryan's, which is medically impossible. Linda said she is just scared and confused. Pregnancy hormones make women say irrational things. I told her she has been planning this for months. Linda, she has been cheating on me. Linda insisted I didn't know that for certain. I said, actually, I do. I hired a private investigator 4 weeks ago when she started acting suspicious. There was dead silence. Then Linda asked, you did what? I explained. I hired a professional investigation company that comes highly recommended. They have been following her for a month. Linda asked in shock, you spied on your own wife? I told her I suspected my wife was having an affair, and it turns out I was right. I asked if she wanted to hear the details. After more silence, Linda asked, who is it? I explained. She has been meeting someone at a local hotel every Tuesday for 6 weeks. Always books the same room for exactly 2 hours, always pays cash. The investigator has photos, credit card receipts from the gas station next door where she fills up afterwards. Timestamps on everything. Linda was quiet for so long I thought she hung up. She finally whispered, who is it? I said that is what I am still figuring out. But it is definitely not Ryan since he is physically unable to father children and spends his Tuesday afternoons in physical therapy. She hung up on me. 2 hours later, the family group chat exploded. Jessica had added everyone. My parents, her 3 sisters, my brother Ryan, even some cousins and aunts I barely talked to. Must have been 20 people total. She posted this long dramatic message saying she wanted everyone to know she was going through the hardest time of her life. She said she was pregnant, and instead of supporting her, I had abandoned her and kicked her out of our home. She claimed I was refusing to accept my own child and spreading lies about our family. She said she needed everyone's support as she figured out how to move forward as a single mother. My mom was the first to respond and ask Jessica, "Didn't you just tell Mike the baby was Ryan's?" Jessica replied that she was scared and confused and said things she didn't mean. Then Ryan jumped in and said, "I am posting my medical records right now so everyone can see this is impossible." And he actually did it. He posted his entire fertility evaluation from the hospital, his test results, his neurologist's report about the spinal injury, insurance claims for fertility treatments. His complete medical history. Sarah, Jessica's sister, immediately responded that this was private family business, and we shouldn't be discussing it in a group chat. That was a really interesting response from someone who hadn't even been mentioned in the conversation. That is when Emma, Jessica's youngest sister, unknowingly dropped the bomb that changed everything. She wrote, "Wait, Sarah, didn't Jessica stay with you guys at the cabin for like 2 weeks in September while Brad was home on military leave?" I remember because she kept posting those sunset photos. I watched in real time as 3 people left the chat. Sarah left the chat, Brad left the chat, and Jessica left the chat. My dad, ever the comedian, wrote, "Well, Christmas dinner is going to be awkward." My mom replied, "Jim, this isn't funny." And my dad said, "I am not laughing, honey. I am genuinely concerned about the seating arrangements." 3 days later, my phone rang from an unknown number. The voice said, "Mike, it is Brad. We need to talk." Man to man, this was the first time Jessica's brother-in-law had ever called me directly. We had been to probably 50 family events together over 7 years, but never had a conversation that didn't involve Pass the Salt. Or how about those sports teams? We met at this dive bar on 5th Street that is dark enough for serious conversations. Brad looked like he had been hit by a truck. Bloodshot eyes, 5-day stubble, wearing the same Marines t-shirt I had seen him in on social media 3 days earlier. I asked straight up, "Did you know?" He said, "Not until that group chat blew up, but ever since then things have been making sense." Sarah's been acting paranoid for weeks, constantly checking my phone, going through my emails, accusing me of cheating out of nowhere. I asked if he thought Sarah suspected something. He said, "No, man," and took a long drink of whiskey. He said, "I think Sarah was unconscious, and Jessica took what she wanted." I asked what he meant, and he explained that anniversary weekend Emma mentioned, September 2nd through 4th. We were celebrating my promotion and Sarah went overboard with drinking, like dangerously overboard. Wine with dinner, then shots, then more wine. I was trying to take care of her, make sure she didn't get sick or anything. He paused, staring into his drink, then continued. I remember helping Sarah to bed around midnight. She was completely gone, couldn't even walk straight. I came back downstairs to clean up the kitchen, and Jessica was there wearing barely anything. She said she couldn't sleep and wanted to keep me company. Brad said, "I was exhausted, man. I had been working double shifts before leave, then dealing with Sarah all evening. I fell asleep on the couch around 2 in the morning. Next thing I know, it is 5 in the morning, and I am waking up with my shirt off and Jessica sitting next to me." I asked what she said, and he explained that she told him she had been checking on him because he was restless and seemed like he was having nightmares. She said she was just trying to help. But he said he didn't remember being restless and barely remembered falling asleep. Then he pulled out his phone and said, "Mike, I need to show you something, but this stays between us until I figure out what to do with it." I asked what it was, and he explained they have a security system at the cabin because of break-ins in the area. Motion-activated cameras with cloud storage backup. He checked the footage yesterday. He showed me his phone with a security camera timestamp from September 3rd at 4:17 in the morning. There was Jessica sneaking out of what I knew was the master bedroom. Hair completely messed up, carrying her shoes, wearing nothing but an oversized t-shirt that definitely wasn't hers. Brad explained that Sarah was unconscious upstairs. She had taken sleeping pills on top of all that wine because she has anxiety and uses them sometimes when she drinks too much. Jessica knew Sarah would be out cold for hours. I felt sick and said, "Brad, that is." And he finished my sentence. "Yeah, I know. Try explaining that to anyone, though. Guy claims a woman took advantage of him while his wife was unconscious upstairs. Who is going to believe that?" We sat there in silence, both nursing our drinks. He finally said the timeline matches perfectly. Baby would be due in May if conceived in early September. I asked what he was going to do, and he said, "Honestly, I don't know yet. But Christmas dinner is tomorrow at Linda's house. Everyone's going to be there, including Jessica. and I have been thinking maybe it is time everyone knew the truth. I asked if he was still going to dinner, and he said, "Oh, I am going, and I am bringing more than just an appetite." He showed me his phone again. In addition to the security footage, he had audio recordings from the cabin's indoor cameras, Jessica's social media posts from that weekend, including timestamps, text messages she would send to her friend bragging about getting some action that weekend, and a receipt from the pharmacy showing she bought emergency contraception on September 5th. He said I saved everything before she could try to delete it. I bought the next round because we were going to need it. Final update: Christmas dinner at Linda's house will go down as the most dramatic family gathering in recorded history. I am talking reality television levels of chaos. I almost didn't go because after everything that happened, spending Christmas with Jessica's family seemed like voluntary torture. But Ryan convinced me. He said, "Dude, you have to come." Brad texted me something crazy. He said he is bringing evidence and that everyone needs to hear the truth. Then my mom called and said Linda specifically asked her to make sure I attend. She says Jessica has something very important to announce to the whole family. Against every rational instinct I had, I went. Walking into that dining room was like entering a hostage situation. The tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Jessica was sitting next to Sarah, whispering frantically. Sarah kept shaking her head and looked like she had been crying. Brad was at the opposite end of the table drinking straight bourbon at 3 in the afternoon. Ryan sat with my parents, occasionally checking his phone for updates from Claire's family Christmas. Various aunts, uncles, and cousins were scattered around, clearly sensing major drama, but not knowing what was coming. Linda stood up and clinked her wine glass with a fork. She said, "Before we say grace and eat this beautiful meal, Jessica has asked to make an announcement to the family." Jessica stood up slowly, one hand on her now visible pregnant belly. She was actually glowing with confidence again, like she had figured out the perfect angle to play this. She said, "I wanted everyone to know that despite the challenges and betrayal in my marriage," and she shot a look at me, "I am blessed to announce that I am expecting a baby in May." There were scattered congratulations around the table and some confused looks because of the betrayal comment. She continued and said, "I have decided that I am going to raise this baby with people who actually love and support me. People who have been there for me through everything." She reached over and grabbed Sarah's hand and said, "My sister and I have always been each other's best friends. We are going to raise this baby together as a family, with or without the father who abandoned us." I was confused because she seemed to be making it sound like she and Sarah were together somehow, which would be a wild twist but didn't make sense with everything else. Sarah looked confused but squeezed Jessica's hand supportively and said, "Of course I will always be there for my sister." That is when Brad slowly stood up and the entire room went quiet. He said, "Actually, before we go any further with this announcement, I have something everyone should hear." Jessica's face went white and she said, "Brad, don't." He said, "No, I think everyone deserves to know the truth about how this baby was actually conceived." Linda started to protest, but Brad held up his hand. He said, "Since we are all family here and since Jessica wants to talk about betrayal, let me share some audio from that anniversary weekend at our cabin." He pulled out his phone and connected it to the speaker they always use for Christmas music. He said, "This is from our security system. September 3rd at 4:23 in the morning." The audio started playing with crystal clear quality. Jessica's voice, slightly slurred but definitely coherent, said he will never remember anything tomorrow. I made sure Sarah took extra sleeping pills with all that wine. Brad's voice sounded groggy and confused. "What, Jessica, what are you doing? Get off me," Jessica said. "Shh, you have been giving me looks all weekend. I know you want this. Just relax and let it happen." Brad said, "No. Stop." "Where is Sarah?" Jessica replied. "She is unconscious upstairs. I made sure of that. She will not wake up for hours." Linda gasped and covered her mouth with her napkin. Jessica pleaded for him to turn it off, but her voice was barely a whisper. Brad said coldly, "There is more. Security footage of her sneaking out of our bedroom at 4:47 in the morning. Text messages to her friend the next day bragging about finally getting some action. Receipt from the pharmacy where she bought emergency contraception on Monday, September 5th. He held up his phone showing a pharmacy receipt with Jessica's name on it and said, "But the emergency contraception didn't work." "Did it, Jessica?" Sarah stood up so slowly it looked like she was moving underwater. She stared at her sister with complete horror. She said, You put something in my drink? You took advantage of my husband?" Jessica was in full panic mode now and said it wasn't like that. "He wanted it. He was flirting with me all weekend. Sarah screamed. We just heard audio of you admitting to putting something in my drink and him telling you to stop. Jessica said that is taken out of context. Emma, Jessica's youngest sister, stood up and screamed what context makes putting something in someone's drink. Okay. The room absolutely exploded with multiple conversations happening at once. Linda was sobbing into her napkin. Sarah was being held back by two cousins as she tried to lunge at Jessica. My mom was literally praying out loud, saying, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. What have we become? Ryan was recording everything on his phone, which was smart. Various relatives were shouting questions and accusations. Jessica tried one final desperate manipulation and said, I am pregnant. You cannot treat a pregnant woman like this. The stress could hurt the baby. Emma laughed bitterly, and I mean bitter, like she was tasting poison. She said, girl, you just confessed to taking advantage of someone in front of 20 people. On audio with witnesses. Jessica insisted it wasn't taking advantage. He got aroused. That means he wanted it. The room went dead silent, and even Linda stopped crying. Brad spoke quietly and said, we literally just heard a recording of me saying no and stop while you admitted to making my wife unconscious. Jessica looked around the room, desperately making eye contact with each person, looking for anyone who would support her. Nobody did. She grabbed her purse and ran out crying. We heard her car start in the driveway and speed off. Sarah collapsed in her chair, sobbing, and Christmas dinner was officially over before we had even said grace. The aftermath has been absolutely nuclear. Brad filed a police report the next day, and the audio recording, security footage, text messages, and pharmacy receipt became evidence in a case. Jessica hired 3 different lawyers, and the first 2 dropped her after hearing the evidence. Sarah filed for divorce and got a restraining order against Jessica. She posted on social media, finding out your sister put something in your drink to take advantage of your husband isn't how anyone plans to end their year. The comments were savage but completely deserved. Jessica showed up at my apartment at 2 a.m. 2 weeks later, pounding on the door and screaming for help. She told me I was supposed to be her husband and had to convince Brad to drop the charges. I called the police and she was arrested for violating the restraining order. The trial happened 3 months ago. Jessica was 8 months pregnant, wearing a maternity dress that said blessed across the belly, like being pregnant would get her sympathy from the jury. The prosecution played the audio, showed the security footage, had testimony from her friend who received the bragging texts, and had the pharmacist who remembered her buying emergency contraception while laughing about doing something crazy. Jessica took the stand against her lawyer's advice and claimed it was all consensual and the audio was taken out of context. When the prosecutor asked why Sarah was unconscious during this supposed consensual encounter, Jessica actually said Sarah always takes too many sleeping pills when she drinks. That is not my fault. The prosecutor asked, but you admitted on recording to giving her extra pills. Jessica said that was just a figure of speech. The prosecutor asked, you often use figures of speech about making people unconscious. The verdict was guilty, and she got 4 years in prison. She gave birth to Brad's son while in custody and immediately signed away her parental rights. Jessica is currently in prison, still claiming she is the victim of a conspiracy. Sarah moved across the country and changed her name. Last I heard, she is in therapy and slowly rebuilding her life. Brad signed away his parental rights and moved far away. He is in specialized therapy. The baby Connor is being raised by Linda, but she is 71 with health problems, so child services checks on them regularly. My divorce was finalized in record time thanks to her confession and criminal record. I am now remarried to Ashley, a nurse who thinks my ex-wife should be studied by criminal psychologists. We have a quiet, drama-free life. No sisters-in-law to worry about. Ryan and Claire successfully had twins through fertility treatments last year, and they are the happiest couple I have ever seen. The family will never recover. There are no more joint holidays, no more group chats. Jessica's actions didn't just destroy her own life. She destroyed an entire extended family with one selfish criminal decision.